Hey, what's up, everybody? So I'm coming to you today with another Champions Report. This is on the WBA Super Championship, which I know is a little confusing. But before I get into the explanation of that, again, guys, True Boxing here. If you like my page, please give me a thumbs up. If you don't like what I'm doing, thumbs down. I really like all feedback because I like to know what you guys like, what you don't like, make adjustments if I agree, and if not, then hey, it's just not for you. But if you guys like the stuff, like my opinions, I really get in depth and in detail, and I appreciate any support that I get. So leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. It really pumps me up, motivates me to keep doing it and coming at it with the truth. You getting hit with the truth, like I always say. So anyway, let's jump right in. So the WBA Super Championship. Now, this is a belt that came to play years ago. The heavyweight division pretty much started it when Vladimir Klitschko was a unified heavyweight champion, and the WBA just wanted to get away from causing their champion to have to make mandatory belts, mandatory defenses, especially when they were unifying belts, because then you have multiple mandatory challengers. So the WBA Super title is basically a distinction that they give out in every division now. It went from some divisions to where it's all divisions now. And, you get that distinction. You don't have to make the direct mandatory against the number one contender. Sometimes they'll make you fight the interim champion or the number one contender sometimes. But for the most part, you don't have to. It's awarded to based on if you earned it or not. Now, the WBA are a bunch of bullshit artists because there's some guys that deserve it, but there's other guys that they just clearly hand the belt to that maybe they did well in another division, so they're basically hand them a belt in their division when they move up in weight or so. So, it's a very corrupt World Boxing Association, and it's funny because the WBA has been around longer than any other governing body. They were the original. There was a National Boxing Association, which became the World Boxing Association. They were the originals, and they are battling it out with the WBC for being the most corrupt. But there still are good fighters in this division. It's just the way they've gone about with their multiple champions, having a regular champion and an interim champion. You put the belt on more people get the distinction of being called world champion, and people pay attention to world title fights, but it's the credibility. They are part of the reason why they started calling it the alphabet belts, because there's so many different world titles and different world champions. But all that being said, that's another day to go all into it full out. Let's look at the 12 WBA Super Champions from 122 to heavyweight and see what they got coming up and what could be possible for them. So, and any updates. Again, I'm going to do these every couple months. So, excuse me. So we'll start off with the 122-pound Super Bantamweight Super Champion, and that is Marajan Akhmadayev. He is the unified champ. He also holds the IBF Super Bantamweight title. It still has yet to be confirmed, but the last I checked, March 13th, it looked like Akhmadayev was making a mandatory defense against IBF interim champion Ryosuke Iwasa. This fight's supposed to have been going on since last year. I know COVID delayed it, but there was talks about 4 weeks ago about this fight taking place March 13th in Akhmadayev's home country, but I've heard nothing since. They're not posting it on BoxRec that it's signed and sealed, so I really don't know. It seems like one of those fights that could come off just out of nowhere last minute. I hope this fight happens because it's a good matchup, and it's a good, if Akhmadayev is the real deal following that win over Daniel Roman last year when he upset him and became the unified champ, it's a great opportunity against a former champion in Iwasa to continue to build his resume. So I love the matchup. I hope it goes forward. If it does, I'm picking Akhmadayev to win by a decision. I wouldn't be surprised if Iwasa beats him, but I think Akhmadayev is on that level, and we'll see how good he really is. But hopefully that fight does take place. If not, hopefully it's at least scheduled by the next Champions Report. 126, the super champion there is still Leo Santa Cruz, even though he has not defended his title in 2 years. So Santa Cruz, when he defeated Carl Frampton in a rematch in 2017, you know, he became the champion a second time, and he's been champion ever since. He's the longest reigning WBA super champion right now. But he has not defended the title since February of 2019. And that's because in November of 2019, he moved up and captured the super title at 130, and then went on last year in October and got knocked out against Gervonta Davis to lose that belt. But moving up in weight and then also losing the 130-pound title, I think there was a lot of people expecting Santa Cruz to be stripped of the belt at 126 or him give it up himself, and that hasn't happened. So I don't know if Santa Cruz is going to continue, is going to move back down to featherweight officially, but he's kind of holding things up because Shu Kan was supposed to fight Josh Warrington in a unification bout. Shu Kan has not been upgraded from regular champ to super champ yet, and that affected things to why Warrington ended up giving up his IBF belt in order to go after other things, because the IBF wouldn't recognize Kan's WBA regular belt as an official world title, as the official belt to unify. They wanted him to be the super champion. The IBF waited for the WBA to strip Santa Cruz of that distinction since he wasn't even fighting in that weight class, and they never did. So if Santa Cruz returns to 130, he's legit there. That's probably the better division for him, but I don't know if he is. We really have no clue what's going on with this belt right now, so we'll see. Hopefully we know more by the next champions report. Or hopefully they upgrade Shu Kan because he deserves it. The next WBA super champion is at 130, and that's, we just mentioned him, the undefeated Gervonta Davis. Davis moved back down at the end of October, moved back down to 130, and knocked out Leo Santa Cruz. He still holds the regular version of the WBA belt at 135 lightweight, so he's champions in 2 different weight classes right now. But we don't know which division he's gonna fight in next. He looked great against Santa Cruz at 130, but will he stay here? Will he move back up to 135? He's supposed to return in June, and I have no idea what division that's going to be at. I don't think the Ryan Garcia fight's likely at lightweight next. So, I mean, who is there to fight, though? There's not a lot of big names in the PBC or the big names willing to sign up and fight him, to where the PBC or any of the other promotions are going to get together. So Gervonta Davis, might not see him in there against a very good fighter next. I'm just going to be real with everybody, keep it 100, but hopefully we know something, and hopefully it is against somebody decent in his next fight. I know he wants that, but I hope the PBC and Mayweather Promotions open the door a little bit and work with other promotions to make some of these bigger fights possible, but we'll see. The next WBA super champion at lightweight is Teofimo Lopez, the undisputed lightweight champion. He holds all 4 major world titles at 135. Well, it looks like Lopez is still going to be fighting Australia's undefeated George Kambosos next. Now, that's not 100% finalized yet, but the last we heard is that looks likely in the spring, probably going to take place in New York because the original plan of Australia seems to be out due to COVID restrictions. So it looks like Lopez will defend all 4 belts against Kambosos. Not 100%. I'm hoping by the next champions report that fight is at least finalized and good to go for May, June area, because I want to see Lopez get back in the ring. The next super champion is at 140 pounds, and that is unified champion Josh Taylor. Taylor holds the WBA super and the IBF championship at 140, and it's not finalized yet, but it looks like Josh Taylor is going to have the opportunity to become only the 6th man to become the undisputed title in the 4-belt era, which is the 4 major world titles. And that's in about a 30-year time frame. So Taylor will almost for sure be taking on undefeated fellow unified champion Jose Ramirez. Ramirez holds the WBC and WBO belts. So these guys are on a collision course. It looks like May 22nd on ESPN. It has not been 100% finalized yet. So until it is, I'm not going to do an is on video where the fight's on for sure. But I really hope, and it looks very likely that these 2 guys are going to sign the deal and be good to go for May 22nd. We should, by the next Champions Report, we should have this fight finalized and on the radar. And I can't wait for that. That's going to be big. The next super champion at welterweight 147 is now Yordenis Ugas. Ugas was just upgraded to super champion last month when the WBA named Manny Pacquiao, who hadn't fought in over a year and a half since winning the title against Keith Thurman. They named him champion in recess because Pacquiao hasn't made it clear when he's returning to the ring. So they upgraded Ugas to super champion, and now Ugas became a real deal player for Errol Spence Jr. to unify belts. When he went from regular champion to super champion, Spence looked at him and said, hey, I'm trying to collect all the belts. So unification season is on, it looks like. I'm leaning towards that's going to be Ugas' next fight, an opportunity against Errol Spence. And you know what? I think Errol Spence wins this fight. I'm favoring him if they were to fight. But, man, I think Ugas would have a good chance to win. He's got an awkward kind of style. He can box, and he's strong enough to keep a guy honest. I do like Yordenis Ugas. I'm hoping by the next Champions Report, we know if this fight's really going to happen or at least what he's going to do next. But I really hope it's Errol Spence and it's locked in stone by the next Champions Report. Keep you posted on that. Next super champion is at 154 pounds, super welterweight, and that is the unified champion there, Jermell Charlo. Charlo holds the WBA Super, the IBF, and the WBC belts. He unified belts in his last fight in September when he knocked out Jason Rosario, and now has 3 of the 4 major world titles. Now, the PBC now owns all 4 major world titles, as Brian Castano just last weekend became the WBO champion. So a lot of people right now are talking about undisputed between Castano and Charlo. Now, here's what's holding that fight up, possibly holding it up, if it's a realistic thing, which I think both guys are interested, is Charlo has a WBC mandatory defense due against Erickson Lubin. Now, the reason why that, why he could give up the WBC belt and the undisputed be ruined is, he's already beaten Lubin once. He knocked him out in the first round a few years ago when he caught Lubin, but there was a lot of people, myself included, that were picking Lubin to win that fight. Now, Lubin is very talented. He's very crafty, southpaw. I think that's a high-risk, low-reward fight. Now, there's a couple options that keep this fight alive, and it makes it relevant to the WBA Super Belt, which is why I'm mentioning it. It makes the fight with Charlo and Castano alive. There's a couple options. Charlo could work out a deal to fight for the undisputed against Castano, and then Erickson Lubin fight for that title next. He could work that deal out. Possibly. Let Lubin be the interim champion and seal the deal on getting the next title shot, or be upgraded to champion if Charlo doesn't want to fight him. There's that. There's also the option that the WBC just did with Teofimo Lopez they actually did it with Vasily Lomachenko first, is they could upgrade Charlo to the franchise champion, and that still be looked at as the legitimate title if Charlo and him decide to lock horns, Castano. So that would still be realistically the main championship belt. So it is possible. So those are the couple options that keep that fight officially alive to happen next. But Castano just fought, and Charlo hasn't fought since February. Maybe Charlo gets another fight in. I know Erislandy Lara's been an option. His regular champion, Lara, that'd be a good defense right there. This is a PBC run division. He could definitely fight whoever he wants while he waits around. And maybe he fights Erickson Lubin again. Maybe he'll go for it. We'll see. I'm hoping we hear something clear, though, and I think we will by the next Champions Report on what Charlo's doing. But I hope it's something good to lead towards undisputed with Castano. Okay, 160 now, middleweight. Super champion there is Ryota Murata. Murata was just upgraded to champion in January when Canelo Alvarez made it official that he was vacating the super championship at middleweight because he no longer was going to compete at 160. He's now full-on 168. So Murata was the regular champion. He got upgraded to super champion. As of right now, I haven't heard what Murata's doing next. We know that last year COVID held everything up. He almost had the fight with Canelo. That didn't happen. But we also, I remember a third fight with with Rob Brandt was supposed to be on the table, and it never happened. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, why that fight didn't take place. I think Rob Brandt said it was because of travel restrictions, because of COVID, which is believable. But, you know, Murata hasn't even planned to fight and defend his belt over there just to even come back and stay busy. He hasn't fought since December of 19. So I'm hoping we hear something very soon about what he's going to do next. And if he wants any shot at Canelo in the future down the road, I think he needs to fight his interim champion, Chris Eubank Jr. I would love to see that fight. So we'll see. I just hope it's something good that he does next. 168, the super champion is Canelo Alvarez. We already know what Canelo's doing. Canelo's fighting Avni Yildirim February 27th. I think he's going to knock Yildirim out and retain his unified championship. He also holds a WBC green belt. So once he's done with that, it looks like Billy Joe Saunders in May to unify belts. Billy Joe Saunders has the WBO championship. So 3 of the 4 major belts will be on the line in that fight. And then if he wins there, Canelo's looking at a 4-belt undisputed title fight against Caleb Plant, the IBF champion. So that would be huge for September. Now Canelo came out and said he wants to fight in December too. So we could see 4 WBA super middleweight super championship fights in 2021, as Canelo, I think in December, could very possibly fight Jermall Charlo or Triple G. Those are the favorites and the front runners in my book for the month of December if Canelo is going to fight 4 times. But we'll see. February 27th, though, on DAZN, Canelo, Avni Yildirim, I think Canelo's going to handle him. Knockout win, retain his belt. And then the fight, by the next Champions Report, the fight with Billy Joe Saunders should be good to go for May 8th on DAZN. Okay, 175, the super champion there is the undefeated Dimitri Bivol. We know Bivol is trying to set up his comeback fight. He hasn't fought since October of 2019. He's trying to set up his comeback fight right now. Haven't heard anything concrete on who it could be, but we know this year that he wants to fight Gilberto Ramirez, and Ramirez has expressed interest there. The fight's makeable. Ramirez is promoting himself. Bivol is with Matchroom, I believe, in DAZN. So they are makeable fights, and I hope we either get that fight next or we get a tune-up bout for both guys, maybe on the same card. That would make sense to build the fight, and then them fight each other in the late summer. That'd be nice. So I'm hoping, and I think we will know something on Dimitri Bivol by the next Champions Report, which should be in a couple months. Okay, 200 cruiserweight. The super champion there is the undefeated Arsen Goulamirian. Goulamirian, I think he's been ordered to defend his super title, but I'm not 100% on that. There hasn't been a lot of news on Goulamirian. He was supposed to come back in December. That didn't happen, so he ended up not fighting at all. He hasn't fought since December of 2019, so I'm hoping we hear something very soon on what Goulamirian's going to do next. I don't think it's going to be anybody big in the top 10, but just to see him come back, shake off some rust, possibly set up a bigger fight later in the year would be big. And then finally, we look at the heavyweight super champion, and that is Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are currently in negotiations trying to finalize their deal. Eddie Hearn said they're going back and forth over little things right now, that he hopes the fight's going to be done by the end of this week, sometime next week possibly, and then they're just discussing, like where both fighters sign a contract, and then they just discuss where they're going to fight. So I'm hoping that that's the case still, and Joshua, coming off that great knockout over Kubrat Pulev, is going to roll into a Tyson Fury fight, hopefully in June. And by the next Champions Report, we should know if that fight and possibly both fights are going to happen and when they're going to happen. We should know by the next Champions Report. So stay tuned, because I will have updates on that. But that's it, guys. That's the Champions Report on the WBA Super Championship. I'm sorry it took so long. The WBA is complicated, but a lot of good fighters holding WBA belts, trying to unify belts, a lot of big things going on. Pay attention to these guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.